My husband refused to forgive me over a misunderstanding and filed for divorce. 9 years later, he learned the truth and showed up at my doorstep. I'm 38 and I divorced my ex-husband Nick, who's now 40, almost 9 years ago. We were married for 3 years and he was a good husband, but due to a serious misunderstanding, he left me and sent divorce papers a few days later. He didn't even give me a chance to explain, so he never learned the truth. It deeply hurt me how quickly he decided to walk away. I didn't contest the divorce and just let him go. At the time, I was a housewife. One day, Nick came home and found my ex-boyfriend Joe at our place. He silently turned around and left. The three of us had known each other since college, and I had dated Joe for just 3 months before realizing I had feelings for Nick. Joe had come over to invite Nick and me to his wedding, which was set to happen a few months later. There was nothing strange or suspicious about it. I would never cheat on my partner, but Nick just assumed I was betraying him and left without a word. I tried to chase after him, calling out, but he drove off as fast as he could and blocked me everywhere, so I couldn't reach him to explain what happened. I didn't even know where he was, and for the next 2 days I just cried and panicked. Joe tried to reach him too to explain, but Nick blocked him as well. I was devastated but believed that once his anger subsided, Nick would come back, I'd tell him everything, and we'd return to normal life. Unfortunately, that didn't happen. A few days later, he filed for divorce. I was desperate and didn't know what to do. I just needed to explain, but he decided I wasn't even worthy of that. With a heavy heart, I stopped fighting for our marriage and let him go. I didn't contest the divorce. When the divorce process began, I packed my things and moved in with a friend until I found a job and could afford to rent a place. It took time, but I got back on my feet and didn't let myself fall into depression. I was angry at Nick's behavior, and I still am. I deserved a second chance, or at least a chance to explain, but even after years together, he didn't think I was worthy of it. I felt betrayed and hurt, but realized I had to take care of myself. I found a job and eventually rented my own apartment. By then, the divorce was finalized, and though I got almost nothing from it, I felt satisfied. I just wanted to move forward, and that's exactly what I did. I ended up going to Joe's wedding a month after my divorce, and I had a blast reconnecting with old college friends. Nick, as I expected, didn't show up, and most people were shocked that we'd split. Everyone thought we'd be together forever, as did I, but life had other plans. Attending Joe's wedding was, damn it, the best decision of my life, because that's where I met Chris, 40, the man I'm now married to, and with whom I have a daughter. We talked at Joe's wedding, and I felt a spark right away, but I held back because I'd just gotten divorced. I wanted to figure myself out before diving into a new relationship. I wanted a break from men, so we just exchanged numbers, but I didn't contact him for a long time. A year later, when I finally felt ready to date, fate brought Chris and me together again. We met at a work event since we're in the same field. That's when I finally agreed to go on a date with him. 2 years later, we got married, and a year after that, our daughter, who's now 5, was born. A lot of time has passed since my divorce from Nick, and I'm a completely different person now. So you can imagine my shock when, after all these years, Nick suddenly showed up at my doorstep. This happened just a few days ago, and I'm still reeling. I don't know how he found me, and I didn't bother to find out because I genuinely didn't care. It was a Saturday, and my husband, daughter, and I were home when the doorbell rang. I was stunned to see Nick standing there with a bouquet of roses and a big smile, as if nothing had happened and years hadn't passed. Before I could process it, he started talking. He said he'd learned a few weeks ago from a friend that Joe was married to someone else, not me, and finally realized he'd misunderstood everything back then. He said he wanted to give us a second chance and came to apologize for everything he'd done. I didn't know what to say. He divorced me over a misunderstanding without even trying to learn the truth. That alone was absurd enough. But now, after 9 years of complete silence, he came back thinking he could just smooth things over with words and get a second chance, even though he'd denied me that chance years ago. As he kept talking, I just stared at him, trying to decide what to do. I desperately wanted to slam the door in his face, but that didn't feel humiliating enough. I decided to do something far more cutting. I told him to wait, went back to the living room where my husband and daughter were waiting, and without time to explain, I picked up my daughter and told Chris, "Come with me to the front door." You can imagine what happened next. Nick was shocked when he saw me walking toward him with my daughter in my arms and my husband behind me. I smiled and told him he was a bit too late to ask for a second chance and told him to get lost. After a moment of silence, he turned, ran to his car, and drove off without another word. I was very pleased with myself and finally felt the sense of closure I'd been missing all these years. After he left, I sat Chris down and told him it was Nick and what he'd said. We ended up laughing about it together. Nick clearly overestimated himself if he thought I'd just take him back after what he did to me 9 years ago. I don't even understand why he thought it was a good idea to show up out of the blue without bothering to check what's going on in my life. One glance at my social media would have shown him I'm married with a child, but I guess he couldn't see that since my profiles are private. Still, he could have asked our old friends to find out how I'm doing. Chris thinks Nick is so self-absorbed that he probably believed I'd been waiting for him all this time, hoping he'd come back someday. Honestly, that's a very accurate assessment of his character, even though Chris has never spoken to him. Update 1. It's been a few days, and I thought Nick would leave me alone after everything, but this morning he messaged me on Facebook from a new account. He said he was deeply hurt by what I did, claiming he genuinely wanted to apologize for the past and I made a fool of him. He still feels sorry, but he thinks I should apologize for trying to humiliate him. I decided not to respond to his messages. He doesn't deserve an ounce of my sympathy, forgiveness, or an apology. My husband was right. Nick really thought I'd been waiting for him all this time and would happily take him back when he finally deigned to return. He's always been selfish, and unfortunately, 9 years ago, I ignored all the red flags before our wedding. They were always there. He hasn't suddenly changed. I was just blinded by love and didn't see who he really was. When we were together, Nick constantly put me in awkward and uncomfortable situations if other men were around, even if they were just friends. He wouldn't say it outright, but he'd throw tantrums and start fights afterward. So I ended up avoiding male friends and only talked to them in Nick's presence, never without him. He also insisted I quit my job and become a housewife because his job required long hours and he wanted the house ready when he got home and didn't trust anyone but me. Back then, I was flattered and happily left a well-paying job to be his perfect wife. Despite everything I sacrificed for him, he didn't even give me a chance to explain. I always felt Nick was especially jealous of Joe since he was my first boyfriend in college before Nick. So Nick was particularly possessive when it came to Joe, even though there was no reason for it. I was always faithful to him and couldn't even imagine cheating, but apparently he didn't think I was trustworthy. After the divorce, it was really tough. It took me a long time to pull myself together and give love another chance. Many of you wrote that I moved on too quickly from one relationship to another. Maybe that's true, I don't know. I can't fully deny it since starting a new relationship a year after a divorce might seem rushed to some. But I'm glad I took that step. I took a risk, and that's why I now have the best husband and a wonderful daughter. So I'm pretty happy with how my life turned out. I'm not going to apologize to Nick, but maybe I should thank him because if he hadn't left back then, I might have been stuck in an unhappy marriage. Update 2. So I found out a couple more things about Nick. Turns out he had no idea about my life because he deleted all his social media and had been living in Seoul for work for the past few years, completely losing touch with old college friends. He came back just a month ago and contacted a friend who wasn't close to me, so he didn't know about my marriage but knew Joe was married and passed that on to Nick. That's how he ended up at my doorstep. It's still weird that he decided to show up after nearly 10 years of silence. Oh, well, I've moved past it. After I ignored his message, he hasn't written again, and I don't think he will. I told Joe what happened, and even he was shocked at Nick's audacity to show up unannounced, expecting me to take him back and then demanding an apology for me giving him a taste of his own medicine. My daughter asked who that man was, but I didn't tell her the truth. She doesn't need to know. I said he just got the wrong address, which calmed her down, and she hasn't asked again. I don't think I'll ever tell her who he was unless she somehow finds out herself, which is honestly very unlikely. Update 3. Nick messaged me again after almost a week of silence. Apparently I forgot to block him, which was stupid on my part, but I've been swamped with work, so I'm not beating myself up over it. In the message, he wrote that he has a lot to talk about and wants to meet. He also claimed it doesn't bother him that I have a husband and daughter, and that he still wants to give our relationship another chance because he's sure I want it too. Basically, Nick is implying I'd be fine cheating on my husband with him. The irony is insane since he accused me of cheating 9 years ago. I was speechless when I read that message. Hey, it was just disgusting. I couldn't believe he had the nerve to write that and actually think I'd agree. I told him to leave me alone and immediately blocked his number because I sure as hell don't need that person back in my life. It's disgusting how he still only sees himself. I don't understand why he keeps believing I have any feelings left for him besides hatred. I made it clear when he showed up that I don't care about him and that my family is all that matters now. He should have gotten the hint and disappeared instead of continuing to show what a pathetic jerk he is. Update 4. It's just laughable how some of you accuse me of still having feelings for Nick. No, I absolutely don't need him. I hate him. Of course, I told Chris about that message. I'm not a cheater and never have been, so I definitely discuss these things with my husband. I love him more than anything and would never do anything to jeopardize our marriage. The only reason I even opened the door to Nick was my dumb habit of not checking who's outside, especially when my husband's home. I'm trying to work on that, but I'd never knowingly let Nick back into my life. I don't want him in it. I'm sickened by the mere accusation of the opposite. I hope that clears things up. Update 5. Nick showed up again, but this time I didn't open the door because I checked who it was first. Thankfully, my daughter was with my husband at his parents' place. I was supposed to go with them, but got stuck at work. When I realized it was Nick at the door, I told him through the door that he needed to leave and that he's not welcome here anymore. I thought I was clear, and he'd go, but he refused to listen. He said he's only in town for a couple more weeks before leaving for another country. I didn't care why he was telling me this, but then he added that it's to our advantage. He said I didn't need to resist anymore and that we could finally be together. I couldn't believe he was standing at my house suggesting I cheat on my husband. It made me sick, and I immediately told him he had 3 seconds to leave, or I'd call the police. He didn't take it seriously and stayed, so I actually called the police and they took him away. I'm so glad my daughter didn't see it. Right after it, I called my husband, and Chris came home in less than half an hour to make sure I was okay. I was fine, just a bit shaken. Still don't understand how he found out where I live. The friend who told him Joe was married wasn't even close enough to me to know I'm married, let alone where I live, so it definitely wasn't him. Now I feel uneasy and uncomfortable in my own home, and I hate it. I'm lucky Nick's only here for a couple more weeks, and I really hope he disappears from my life after that. I'm most worried not for myself, but for my daughter. I'm not saying he's dangerous, Nick doesn't seem crazy yet, but I wouldn't rule it out. Even today, while I was hiding in the living room waiting for the police, he was begging me to give him a chance. He thought I was bluffing and didn't believe I'd called, even though he heard me reporting him on the phone. I think this is just another stage of his delusion. We're planning to beef up security and talk to my husband's uncle, who works in the police, to get advice on what to do next because this is getting too weird and scary. I don't want to sit idly by and wait for what he'll come up with next. Update 6. I think I figured out how Nick found me. I talked to a few college friends, and it turns out one of them accidentally gave my address to an old friend of Nick's. When I told her what happened, she apologized profusely and said she forgot to ask my permission first. I'm still mad because her forgetfulness has caused me a ton of problems. I'm keeping my distance from her now because what she did was incredibly foolish. You don't just give out someone's address without asking. Even a second grader understands that. After the police came and took Nick off our property, I haven't heard from him, but my husband and I are seriously considering moving in case he lied about leaving in a couple of weeks. We don't want to take risks, especially since our daughter's school is nearby, and I'm feeling more paranoid and anxious about how this turned out. Moving is still on the table, and the only thing holding us back is our daughter. She loves our house and was really upset when she heard we might have to leave. If anyone has advice on how to handle this, I'd be grateful. Update 7. Nick left for Canada, and several people confirmed it, so I know he's really gone. He sent me one more message after I called the police, saying he still believes something could have happened between us that day if I hadn't been scared to take the step. He said he'll wait for the day when I, like him, realize I still love him, and that my husband is just an obstacle between us, nothing more. He even offered to adopt my daughter to prove his devotion and sent his address in Canada so I could reach out when I'm ready. I couldn't believe people can be so detached from reality, but the important thing is he's gone. He wrote from a new number, so I blocked that too, and that's it. I won't have to deal with his nonsense or fear him showing up at my house unannounced anymore. I'm most relieved that we didn't have to move. My daughter is happy staying in the house she loves, and as long as she's happy and safe, I don't need anything else. I feel at ease knowing we're not in danger, though we've kept all the security measures in place just in case. My husband and I read Nick's last message together while sitting on the couch, sipping wine and watching our daughter play. It was so absurd. Even after seeing my family, Nick still believes I could want him. I can't imagine how someone can be so self-obsessed. I even forwarded the message to Joe, and he reacted the same way we did. I still don't talk to the friend who gave out my address. What she did was incredibly irresponsible, and as a mother, she should have known better. She put not just me, but my family at risk, and I can't forgive her for that. Anyway, we're planning a trip to the beach in a couple of weeks, our daughter's favorite place. I want to breathe and relax because the past few weeks have been really stressful. I feel like I've earned this break. Thanks to everyone for your support and kind words. Hugs.